you had a whole thing you were going to talk about with like lore and hat colors, and I don't know if you want to do that today.
We've got 5 minutes. I think I can fit this in. I want to clarify some of the lore around the hat colors. As we've talked about before, there's 7 main political factions that operate in the Runiverse, and they are distinguished by hat color. But the reason I put them in there is because they are a great storytelling tool. So when you write about a character, you need to know that character's backstory, their history, their hopes, dreams, aspirations, and goals. And you need to know these things because when you're writing about that character, this is the information you use to tell you how they act in any given situation. And so same thing applies to worlds. When you're building a world and when you're creating a world, you need to know that world's history and geography and the cultures and the politics of that world. Because honestly, perhaps one of the primary forces that affect a world is its geopolitics. This applies in the real world, and this applies in fictional worlds. Politics obviously have a profound implication on how societies behave, and thus how individual characters behave, or at least the daily challenges that are thrown at them. If you study world history, you're essentially just studying politics, the politics of the conquerors and the leaders and the rulers of their time. So I just wanted to supply some of that seed of creation to the Runiverse with these 7 factions. Now, even though we've put this out there, it is totally up to you as the creator whether you want to use this information or not. If we look at the real world, most people don't directly acknowledge the political influences on their lives. In fact, many outright detest politics. And I totally understand that. I would expect that many wizards and warriors in the universe are the same. So again, I'm only putting this out there as pieces of information that you can play with. Furthermore, the hat colors on your characters are not meant to be rigid structures that your characters must adhere to. If your wizard's hat is red, but you find the red hat culture and politics not to your liking, then your red hat is merely a fashion statement and nothing more. But, to me, what is interesting about these 7 factions is they are archetypes of human organization. They are descriptions not necessarily of individual humans, but of groups or cults, if you will. Since I just mentioned the red hats, this is a culture that organizes around the love of money and finance. Examples of this culture are like Wall Street, or frankly, a huge chunk of the crypto community, like finance bros. There's people, especially in the United States, who believe that capitalism and free market dynamics are the most virtuous expression of any human society. And this is the organizing principle around which the red hats adhere to. The red wizard capital city is governed by these principles on the Runiverse map. And so then, of course, these principles can trickle down into individual characters as well. And so let me give you an example. You can find virtuous examples and you can find very sinful examples of this mindset. A virtuous example would be like Bruce Wayne of Batman. This is a mortal man who essentially his superpower is his wealth. He uses his unlimited wealth to create amazing tech and fight crime. Without his wealth, Batman would just be like an amazing detective who probably works at the Gotham PD to earn a paycheck. But it's his wealth that's really just transformed who he is and allows him to be a superhero. Another maybe example would be like the Crawleys from Downton Abbey. Though, you could probably argue that they are more defined by their aristocratic tradition more than they are the wealth itself. Then if you look for some ugly, sinful, amoral examples of this, these examples are myriad. Patrick Bateman from American Psycho is a great example. This is a man who is so depraved by his relentless pursuit of capitalistic materialism that he totally loses his grip on reality and becomes a sadistic serial killer. Another great example is the Lannisters from Game of Thrones, who is a family who defines themselves primarily through their wealth and pretty much at the expense of all else. So that's a little bit about the red hats. Again, all the hat colors have a really distinct political ideas, cultures. Right now there's sort of like a push and a pull between the tech and the art of NFTs and which one's more important. I think they're both equally important. And so this is actually a really good segue into the Blue Hat faction within the Runiverse and what they are all about. OpenSea's logo color is blue. Perhaps there's some quantum synchronicity here. So I just want to dive into this just real quick. Last week we talked about the red hats and how they are financially driven. They use their magic primarily for financial gain. They are oligarchs and crony capitalists. They have seized massive amounts of power because they found that money has an enormous influence on their allies and their enemies. And this is a thing that you can see in real life. But the red hats' financial power is by no means dominant in the Runiverse. There are 7 other hat colors, and they have their own ideas about power. So today, let's look at the blue hats. They are mostly concentrated in regions in and around the Blue Wizard Bastion. The blues are mostly scholarly, academic, and very learned. They boast some of the most impressive libraries in the Runiverse. The halls of the Bastion contain some of the most well-respected philosophers, teachers, and scholars in the land. And science, which is often seen as the opposite of magic, is extremely well developed here. Science is empirical, predictable, and methodic. These are qualities not often attributed to magic, which is unpredictable, emotional, and intuitive. You can read books on magic, but unless you feel it, you cannot practice it. This is where we see what's so impressive about the blues, which is they are engaging in the seemingly impossible task of merging science and magic. Because though they are scientific academics, they are also powerful wizards with an intuition in the magical arts. One result of this preoccupation with science is this has led the blues to a real fascination with technology and machines. Because after all, what is a machine? It's predictable, it's reliable, it's utilitarian. And a good machine is often the fruit of rigorous scientific inquiry. The Blue Wizards have dabbled in creating magic machines, if you will, which is a device that is meant to leverage the strengths of science and magic, tech and art, intellect and emotion, the brain and the heart. So the blues would say to the red hats, what is money? What is finance in the face of such a machine? What are these shallow financial pursuits when all the world's learning is at your fingertips? The civilized world, after all, is dependent on technology. And indeed, the most powerful societies are those who leverage it the most. For the blues, knowledge is power. So, just like the Reds last week, we could see virtuous and strong examples of that archetype in media, as well as the weak and evil examples, relatively evil. There are good examples and bad examples in the blues as well. So, good examples would be like Hermione Granger from Harry Potter, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, Professor X. These are all characters who have utilized their superior intellect as a strength and usually leveraged it in technology. Evil examples are just, the obvious evil genius trope, of which there are numerous examples. Dr. Doom, Lex Luthor, the Riddler, just anyone who uses superior intellect and uses it to leverage technology. So, that's really all I have to say about the blues. Next week, I want to talk about the yellow hats. I just thought it was super relevant for everything we've been talking about today. Even Sobi asked us in the D space, what does Magic Machine mean? Why did we choose that as the name for our company? And I think it's just the perfect dichotomy for what we're trying to do and really just the NFT space in general.
New Forge just happened. A kobold with a golden chainsaw. It's really good.
What?
Yeah. I don't know who forged it.
Oh, lightning spell? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Speaking of Magic Machine, a golden chainsaw with a lightning spell. I mean, and it's blue. Are you kidding me? Quantum synchronicity everywhere, people. That's actually a really good segue into this yellow hat lore drop. I just said that fun is the antidote to the bear market blues. Let's expound upon that. So let's talk about the yellow hats who live down in Chronomancer's Riviera. Let me start with the question. What is the ultimate cliche goal that everyone aspires to? What is the answer that you most often get when you ask someone, what will you do when you make all your millions? 90% of the time, the answer is, I want to retire and relax on the beach. It's as if that is the greatest achievement any individual human can aspire to. This blissful in-state on the beach. And indeed, the market knows this. This is why beachfront properties are the most expensive. And the Yellow Hats know this. They have taken this aspirational prayer of humanity and built their entire spiritual culture around it in Chronomancer's Riviera. The Yellow Hats look at the phrase life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness not merely as a declaration of their sovereign independence. For them, it is a decree of spiritual liberation. And indeed, happiness and liberation are on full display here in the Riviera. In fact, it might be more accurately described as hedonistic Epicureanism. It is this extreme pursuit of pleasure that is only compounded by the fact that we are dealing with wizards here, after all. Primary magical expression is the manipulation of time itself. And so most people who are able to achieve this blissful in-state on the beach, the catch-22 is they're too old to actually enjoy it. You know, you work away your youth so that you can sit on the beach when you're old. And that's the hardest time to enjoyment. And so what is the solution? The solution, obviously, is to use magic to manipulate time itself. And so we see an abundance of time mages and chronomancers in the Riviera. They are using time manipulation to stay young. They're using it to make parties last deep, deep, deep into the night. The old adage, time flies when you're having fun, takes a whole new meaning here. It's as if the very act of having fun and experiencing pleasure is in manipulating time itself. The pain of the bear market makes time insufferably drag. And the best antidote to that is to build fun experiences and bring joy back to each other's lives. Because indeed, we in this world can experience the manipulation of time. Time measured by the machine is quite different from time measured by the chronometer of our brains. We can travel back in time through the experience of nostalgia. We can travel to the future through the simple expression of hope. And if you're lucky enough to savor the very moment that you're living in right now, to be mindful of each precious moment of the present, then you can experience infinity, time everlasting, because every moment can be infinitely divisible. And so some may look at the debaucherous parties of the yellow hat culture and see a shallow materialism. And indeed, perhaps for many, that is the depth of their virtues. You can also find great wisdom in this pursuit of happiness. For what good is the money of the reds, or the knowledge of the blues, or the conservation of the greens, if they don't take the time to enjoy it? And so, I love the yellow hats. I mean, I imagine it's like the vacation destination of the Runiverse. You can think of it like Cabo San Lucas, or any of those beautiful Mexican beaches. But it's while there's a lot of wild parties going there, undoubtedly being DJ'd by the greatest DJ of the Runiverse, DJ Gwendolyn. I think there really is like a sort of a wisdom in what they're doing, because after all, everybody at the end of the day, at the end of their life, just wants to chill, relax, and enjoy the slippage of time. I want to talk a little bit about the green hats today, and then I want to go over some cult content.
Please, yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, last week we talked about the red hats. Previously we talked about the red hats, who are capitalistic oligarchs using magic, or using the magic of finance to seize power. And then we talked about the blues, who believe power resides in knowledge, rationality, and technology. But today I want to dive into the greens. The green hats, whose power centers lie in the equatorial jungles on the map. And so the primary culture of the greens is that they live in harmony with nature. They do not try to dominate nature. Their society blends in with it as much as possible. I would imagine a lot of green hat cities being very much solar punk in design. If you're familiar with solar punk, they essentially just all of their power sources are from the sun. And then their magic, of course, pulls from deep within the earth. And it's quite possible that these sources are far older than even the quantum shadow itself. And so the greens, they pity the reds, because what good are their feeble financial markets and their cosmopolitan cities in the face of a powerful earthquake or a hurricane? What good are the blues libraries in the face of an inferno? What technology can possibly be built that would counter the natural forces of an entire planet? Because in the end, nature is all that endures. The unstoppable forces of the natural world will always prevail. You could even argue that the singularity itself is a natural event. And nature was here before the singularity, and it is here after the singularity. And so to really understand the greens, there's a lot of tropes of this type throughout literature and film and media. And with the reds and the blues, I started with like the good trope. Normally I start with the good guys, but with the greens, I want to start with like the quote evil trope, because that's what makes this trope interesting. And it's interesting because in the natural world, good and evil kind of don't really exist. The natural world basically transcends these human notions of good and evil. You can't really say nature is evil. What you can say is nature is harsh and brutal and just disconnected from the paltry concerns of humanity, but it's not evil. And so here an example of this would be like Werner Herzog's film The Grizzly Man. Spoiler alert, in the end, the guy gets eaten by the bear. But you can't say that bear is evil. The bear is just doing what a bear does. Yeah, bear. Anything you do, bear, is never evil. You're just being a bear.
You heard it here, folks. Give me your children.
Yeah. But yeah, and then, this concept is really explored in one of my favorite books, The Jungle Book. The central protagonist, Mowgli. It's all about his sort of him confronting what's called the law of the jungle, which is sort of epitomized by Shere Khan. Shere Khan is just a tiger. He's not evil. He's just doing what a tiger does. And what's really interesting about Mowgli's journey as he grapples with the law of the jungle is that he learns that since he's a human, this sort of puts him outside of the jurisdiction of this law, because for one thing, he can wield fire. And of course, fire is a metaphor for human civilization. And when civilization is built, it destroys the jungle and all the animals in it. But yeah, it's, so what's interesting is like when human beings, i.e. the Greens, when they try to sort of observe the law of the jungle and sort of live in harmony with it. A few other, quote, evil examples of this are like Jurassic Park. Clearly for all the humans involved, those dinosaurs were very bad. But again, they're dinosaurs. They're just doing their natural thing. Another really cool example of this is that movie Into the Wild. It's, again, sort of like another Mowgli tale. The guy in it, he tries to become one with nature, and in the end, nature destroys him. And so, yeah, the bad, like the quote unquote evil examples of this trope are super, super fascinating, because it really just, in the end, it makes you question, like, what is evil really? And then, of course, there's tons of like really virtuous, good examples of this. Lord of the Rings, for example, has many versions. The Ents, Radagast the Brown, and to an extent, the elves themselves. These are all beings who are just really trying to live in harmony with nature, and living in harmony with nature is like the highest good. Other examples are like the Ewoks from Star Wars, the Na'vi from James Cameron's Avatar, San from Princess Mononoke. So yeah, it's funny because like I think if me personally, if I were to be in any of the wizard factions, I would maybe find myself with a lot of affinity for the Greens. This is just my personality, but yeah, it's a pretty straightforward trope, and yet it's extremely powerful, and there's a lot of just like really fascinating inherent conflict within like the whole green philosophy. That's really all I have to say about the Greens today. I think next week I'm going to go into the yellows.
Love that.
Yeah. It's funny. I think I saw Bill Gaines the other day saying something about like there's nothing like weak or wrong about the Greens, and like I can see an argument being made for that. It's just like the bad side is like often like green philosophy just really discounts what it means to be a human. But is that bad? I don't know. It's up for the debate. That's the way it is for all these hat colors. There's really no like way to perfectly define any of them, and that's why it's good storytelling material, because there's inherent conflict in all of them. I told Snoop Dogg that I would talk about the brown hats today. He requested the white hats, but I'm gonna go brown today. White hats maybe next week. So yeah, let's dive into the Delta. As we all may or may not know, the Browns live in the northern Delta. It is a region called the Brown Wizard Delta. These lands are fertile farmlands, and in fact, much of what is grown here supplies much of the supercontinent with food. Now, in our world, farming has become very mechanized and industrialized, and the provincial charm has sort of been lost, but not so with the brown hats of the Delta. They have retained that charm, and they would argue it's because they have aggressively rejected the machine. You can call them Luddites, you can call them old-fashioned, you can call them bumpkins, or any of the reactionary or aggressive names that you want, but there is a voice in many of us that says, this simple life is the way humanity is meant to live. The brown hats do not use their magic for the materialistic pursuit of wealth or the winding minefields of academia. They do not care for the debauchery of the Riviera. And while they understand the green hat's appreciation for the earth, they seek a healthy dominion over it rather than submission to it. It turns out that using magic, not the machine, is the best tool to work the land and assist the hunt. The best use for magic, according to the brown hats, is the practical everyday tasks, the household chores, yard work, and putting food on the table. And it is because of this that their cloaks and their hats are often covered in a wholesome layer of dirt. It is because of this that they have put behind their earliest origins as the orange hats. That bright orange faded long ago to a ruddy brown, and that's okay because the orange was a bit too flashy anyway. Now, literature and media is full of this archetype. The classic example is Aesop's country mouse, the provincial rodent with a distaste of the big city. But my favorite example is, of course, Tolkien's hobbits. They are the quintessential country folk who, in Tolkien's words, love peace, quiet, and a good-tilled earth. But this archetype is not without negative examples. Indeed, the hobbits do have some negative characteristics. As Tolkien describes, they are a bit xenophobic and suspicious of outsiders. They are often fearful of the outside world. They are incurious and can be very narrow-minded. You see this negative trope often expressed as a fearful mob carrying torches and pitchforks. We've seen this in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and even Beauty and the Beast. These unruly mobs, they fear the novel, the unknown, and are thus easily manipulated. Tolkien has us covered there too. In the final chapter, The Scouring of the Shire, we see the dejected Saruman rousing the Shire into a fearful fervor, and it is up to the heroes to lead them out of this fear. But yeah, I think a lot of us may have rejected my analysis last week of when you posed the question, where do you want to retire? Most people will say a warm beach. I saw a lot of cult members say no, they would much rather tend a farm in the woodlands. And you know what? I understand that very much. I really do. Bear, I feel like the brown hats might appeal to you.
You think?
Yes. You've always talked about your cabin on Dreammaster Lake. That's a very brown hat thing. Dodo, you kind of live on a brown hat homestead, right?
Yep, out in the woods on a few acres, a couple golden retrievers, a couple of cats. Someone
A
asked
blind
me,
horse.
a blind horse. It's not my horse, but yeah.
No, it's great. I
Simpler way to
get the
live.
appeal for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm brown. I'm a mix of brown, yellow, and honestly green probably. But yeah, you can't put me in a box. So sorry.
Yeah, no,
I planted a field. I planted a field of wheat this winter. I could use some magic to help it grow. It's not doing so good.
You got to learn that good old provincial country time magic.
What's the ultimate case for the wheat? Are we making bread? Are you milling it or what?
Yeah, separate the wheat from the chaff, mill it into my own bread. It'll be delicious.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm expecting a loaf in the mail.
Yeah. When the apocalypse hits, you guys are gonna starve out in California, and
Wait a minute, you're not. I thought you were about to invite us. You're just telling us we're gonna die.
Well, if you can make it, you can have some of my wheat. You might need a 4-wheel.
I'll make it. I'll make it, buddy.
Yeah.
I've got some white hat lore that I think I wanted to talk about, because we want to start just talking a little bit more about lore in every Wizard Wednesday. Slowly roll that out. So I don't even think we did talk about lore last time because we were in Miami, but the one before that was the brown hats. So today, let's go over the white hats, and then next week will be my favorite, the purple hats. But today it's white. So, when we refract white light through a prism, we see that it is made of all the colors that I can see. And so all the world's complexity is reduced to a clean and minimal expression, a single beam of wholly achromatic light. This is sort of the reduction of everything to one thing. It's about chaotic complexity to simple minimalistic order. So the white hats, they ponder the void and they see order. They ponder the universe and they reduce it to a singular rune. And so while the rest of the hat colors are either seeking power through obscene wealth or seeking truth through the endless quest for knowledge or deep wisdom in the natural world or the pleasures of youth, the white hats are sitting in their high tower, quietly meditating through all of it. They say that enlightenment is found not in excess, it is found in the essential. The shadows have left the cave only to find that in the end, supreme order was on the wall all along. These aesthetic sages rarely venture forth to exert themselves on the world stage. Their magic is subtle, quiet, and rarely seen. This has led many in the Runiverse to question if these Stoics are hiding an immense power level or if in fact they have no power at all. And so this is one of those archetypes that you see in media a lot. And just like the green wizards, the whites are not, I find that they're not easily categorized into the good and evil rubric because they have such a reductionary philosophy that it makes these labels of good and evil seem quaint. A classic example is Nietzsche's Zarathustra, who was a sage who spent 10 years on a mountaintop, sort of just detached and separated from all of humanity. A more modern example would be like Dr. Manhattan from The Watchmen, who adopted the hydrogen atom as, which is the simplest of all elements. He adopted that as his pure expression of reality. And so he's often very much attached from the affairs of humanity, often with detrimental effect. But every time he does these things that humans would consider terrible, he rationalizes it with calm, lucid, ordered rationality. And we often see this detached personality in many of the sages we see across media. Pai Mei in Kill Bill is a good example. Master Splinter from the Ninja Turtles is a good example. So, you know, true to the white hat philosophy, their explanation is really quite simple. There's not a lot to it. You know, if there was 3 features that I could use to describe them, it would just be order, aesthetic minimalism, and hidden power level. So yeah, that's the white hats. That didn't take too long, but yeah, next week will be the purple. They are my favorite, and they are the reason why I chose the Purple Wizard as the PFP for Forgotten Runes on Twitter. So stay tuned next week. Okay, so the purple hats are probably my favorite, even though I don't like, I myself don't necessarily identify with them. They're one of my favorite archetypes, and it's the reason that I think we wanted to use the purple hat as our PFP. It's because they're sort of the quintessential wizard. They are extremely talented in all sorts of magic, but particularly really deep arcane magic of the cosmos, like any magic that's sort of like not of this planet. The purple wizards are particularly adept at, because their heads are not even really attached to reality. And so, you know, one trait that you often see of the purples is their magic is very ingrained, meaning they didn't really have to train or learn it. It was just sort of a gift of talent that they were born with. And so, you know, what do you often see with people who are born with great talents? And you know, one thing you see is that they don't often know how to temper that talent because they were just lived with it all their life. And so purple hat magic is often overly complex and esoteric and very powerful. They might even be the most overpowered wizards in the Runiverse. On the map, you'll notice a place called the Psychic Leap. This is a hot spot for purple wizards, although their headquarters is really based in this large pavilion on the island, on this big island in the west. But because the purples have a deep affinity for magic, their magic often controls them rather than the other way around, because they have completely given themselves over to it. And so you contrast with the white hats or the blue hats. The white hats are kind of the opposite. They have supreme control over their magic to where their magic is almost non-existent. And then the blues, they have tempered their magic heavily with reason and science. But the whites, it's pure chaos. Or sorry, the purples, it's pure chaos. They let this chaos just wash over and consume them. And so, you know, purples are often perceived as sort of clumsy and goofy and silly. Their spells are often really loud and explosive and colorful and chaotic. If you were walk into a purple hat's house, it would be very messy. Their spell books are often incomprehensible, written in chicken scratch. And you never really know if a purple hat wizard is just extremely powerful or if they've just lost their mind. Perhaps a bit of both. In fact, you'll often see them on street corners, almost vagrant, raving about some impending magical doom. And so there's a lot of examples of this trope throughout media. The more wholesome, good-hearted examples of this, you could say Merlin from Disney's King Arthur. The way they depicted Merlin is sort of a good example of a purple hat because he's messy, he's kooky, he's kind of humorous. He seems to have unlimited knowledge, but he can never deliver it in an organized way. And we see this trope of the clumsy, weird wizard a lot. It's basically just a wizard that's so magical that he's lost touch with reality. But this trope can also very easily take a dark turn. You could kind of a lesser version of this is maybe like Darth Vader. Darth Vader is, he was born with just an extremely powerful affinity to the Force, and he couldn't control it, and it got the best of him. Another example would be like Akira from that anime/comic book, Akira, which was a boy who basically just became so overwhelmed with this like psychic power that it just totally took control of him, and he could not control it. So yeah, I mean that's the purple hats. They're a lot of fun. They're probably my favorite. And with that actually that's all the hat colors. This was the last one. I wanted to clarify just the why of why these political factions are out there. Just it's a great storytelling tool. We needed something to some backstory on the Runiverse itself. And again, the Runiverse is a reflection of the real world. So all these factions are just like archetypes that I've just pulled out that I think a lot of organizations and societies organize themselves around.